timing is everything, as the saying goes. So I think we're going back to cliches now. Marketing advice is you do you, and timing is everything.
Perfect.
We can stop the podcast now. Stop recording.
Yeah, it's done. We're done. Welcome to another episode of Unlocking the Flywheel podcast. And today with us in the studio, we have Andrus Purde. Hi, Andrus.
Hey, hello, and thank you for having me here.
Andrus is the founder of a marketing platform called Outfunnel, and we're going to get into what Outfunnel does and how it works. It took me a while to wrap my head around it. And Andrus is also an early team member and the marketing manager of Pipedrive, and he used to also work within marketing in Skype. And today we're going to talk about the general idea of B2B marketing, how to think about B2B marketing, how the full area works. We're going to dive into the lessons that Andrus learned from Outfunnel and Pipedrive both. And then we're going to look at the whole field of marketing and how marketing has evolved. How what used to work might not work anymore, and how what's working today might not work in the future, and how you should think about these things.
It's only going to take us 3 days to cover all these topics.
Perfect. We have time. We have all the time in the world. It's going to be a 3-day conversation. Let's try to explain to the layman, a person like me, because it did take me time to finally understand what Outfunnel does exactly. Please explain to us, what does Outfunnel do and what is the challenge that it solves?
Always good to start from a pitch, but I'll try to not be too salesy here. But the challenge that many B2B companies or just small businesses face is that they want to run their sales and marketing functions together. So they want sales and marketing people to work together as one team. And to do that, you need sales and marketing data and tools to work together, which is easy to do if you have big budgets. Like if you can afford to buy the professional edition of HubSpot or Salesforce, you're off to the races. You don't need to worry about it. But if you're somewhat constrained by budget, or the other use case is that maybe you don't even have budget concerns, but let's say you want to very specifically use Pipedrive as your CRM, not HubSpot or not Salesforce, because that's just better for certain types of sales. Then it's very hard to make different sales and marketing tools work together so that the data flows between the tools effortlessly. And that's what we do. That's what Outfunnel does. We help you to pick any CRM, any marketing tool, and we'll connect the data together as if you're using one big platform.
So maybe let's take this into marketing a little bit about like the past trends, current trends, and essentially what you've learned because you've been doing marketing for so long. What's I'm familiar with your blog article of treating your marketing budget like a investment portfolio. I don't know if it's like a concept you invented, but I've read this like 2 years ago myself, because I've been following you on Twitter for actually probably like around 10 years already. But maybe let's start with like a fun story or like an interesting story of what's like a risky or considered risky marketing strategy 10 years ago that became like the norm in a way. Or like what's like a risky strategy that you tried and didn't expect much but ended up having like massive impact?
To be a smart ass first, I think the riskiest strategy is to not take any risks in a way. I think you always need to be experimenting, not always, but you need to set aside a certain amount of your budget and time to work on experiments. And then for me, I think one good subject of experiments is looking after new platforms, new emerging channels. So for Pipedrive back in the day, for example, Pipedrive launched maybe 6 months before Google launched the Chrome Web Store. And then one of the co-founders, this wasn't my idea, this was his own initiative idea. He built a very easy integration with the Google Chrome Web Store. So it was easy to sign up from Google. And because Google wanted to drive a lot of traffic to the marketplace early on, this took off hugely. So Google Chrome's web store took off, and Pipedrive's listing on that web store took off. And then I think immediately we added 1/3 of signups overnight. And that worked really well for a few years. Of course, the quality of signups weren't as high as they would be from a more relevant channel, but you don't need to worry about it if you don't pay for the signups. And then I think similarly, back in the Pipedrive days, we were pretty early on in using Capterra, which is a kind of B2B app review site. We were pretty early on in testing Capterra with paid channels. It worked out well. The ROI was there higher than it was for Google Search or other paid channels. So we kept increasing our budget there. And then I think it was the first channel we maxed out. We wanted to increase our Capterra budget. We're already in 6 digits per month for Capterra, but they just couldn't accept more budget. They had run out of traffic. So that was a good experiment there. But of course, we tested many channels. These two were positive examples. There's probably a dozen or 2 dozen of similar channels we wanted to test early on, which didn't work as well.
But let's dig in a bit more to how you think about risk, because I find this really interesting, and especially treating your marketing budget as an investment portfolio. I kind of want to understand how you think about risk and how you compartmentalize risk, since you said that you have to eliminate all risk completely, but isn't allocating market budget by itself an action of risk already, or how do you think about this?
If I ever said that you have to eliminate all risk, then I must have been drunk. We can't eliminate risk. I think everything you do, there's some risk involved. What worked yesterday, there's no guarantee that will continue to work today, and there's always some amount of uncertainty. But I think you can manage risk, and maybe I'm the wrong person to speak about risk. I'm a marketer, not an insurance person. But maybe just to give context to the listeners, the blog post was about looking at your marketing budget and treating that as an investment portfolio. What this means is that usually, let's say like you're in your 30s, and one day you want to retire and live comfortably. Then you're probably looking at investing your money and putting something aside for the time when you don't have active income anymore. It makes sense to put some amount of your funds or like your investments into places where they have a guaranteed return. Maybe it's real estate, maybe it's EFTs, maybe it's kind of these index funds. You put your money there, you grow with the economy, you go actually maybe slightly faster than the economy if you're wise, and the risk of losing that money completely is very low. In marketing terms, that would be using the same channels that your competitors use. So if everybody's using Google Search, you also do some Google Search. If everybody is using some events, you probably also should do events. Then I think there's some a bit riskier investment strategies like buying stocks. So this would be trying maybe channels which other companies in your area, like maybe not direct competitors, but other companies selling to the same persona are using, but your competitors are not using. And then finally, you want to set a small amount of budget, and how small, it's debatable depending on how big your budget you have, and then how much runway do you have left. But you want to put probably also in pension terms, it means how much time do you have left until you go to pension. Let's say you want to put away 10% or 20% of your funds in a way that if it works out brilliantly, and you can buy really big boats when you retire. But if it doesn't work, you don't need to worry about losing that money. So you still have made enough from your less risky investments or marketing channels, and you can afford to lose 5, 10, or 15% of your investments. Talking about budgets and marketing in the same sentence is slightly confusing sometimes, but hopefully you get the gist that in a similar way that you can put some amount of your assets into crypto or maybe buying stock options, call or put options, then you can put some of your marketing budget into quite crazy experiments, and then you don't expect the return, but if something works there, you get your money back 10 times, 100 times, 500 times.
How do you keep an eye on emerging platforms? Because you mentioned to keep an eye out for them, to look around, find emerging platforms. But I would guess if I go on Product Hunt, maybe you can tell me, how often do people launch these kind of new platforms, and how often do they pan out or do they not pan out? Because I have a feeling that every other day somebody's going to try and launch a new, let's say a platform or a marketing place or some kind of a tool that is not going to see the light of day. So what are the, let's say, qualifications in your head for an emerging marketing platform that's worth your time and effort and investment?
There's some marketers I tend to follow on Twitter or LinkedIn. So it's good to keep an eye on a handful of people that are somewhat related to what you do, and see what they talk about, what they've tried and tested. Although I think I found that the really good channels are not really shared publicly that much. Listening to podcasts helps, but I think the best way to learn is usually to speak to other people in your field directly. So schedule one-on-one calls or group calls with people who are doing something similar to you but not directly competitive. And then you can just very openly share what's working. I'll show you yours, you show me mine. And then I think that's probably the quickest way to learn. I think talking to other people in the field, in my experience, is 10 times better time ROI compared to reading blogs or listening to podcasts. I mean, not to say anything bad about podcasts. We're on one. This is a good podcast to listen to. But and it's like it's hard to schedule quality calls, but it's a good habit to have, to speak to at least 2 or 3 professionals in your field every month.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you're saying. Speaking about marketers and learning from podcasts, and that's why we're having you on the podcast here as well. But to make this podcast valuable for the listener, is there any alpha, any secret information you want to share right now? Maybe that you can share publicly, some platforms that the listeners should look towards. What are some emerging marketing platforms that are worth looking at this point in time?
I think
best accounts to follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing is top of mind right away, so maybe let's come back to that. But nothing brilliant came to mind right away.
Okay, but if you have any accounts to follow, I'm gonna definitely ask a follow-up at the end of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this impression that like B2B marketing has moved very close to influencer marketing, where like every company essentially has like an executive that is sort of the face of the company and is promoting it. And these companies seem to be growing very fast, but I am basically getting all my information from Twitter. So I don't know if this is like a real trend that you're seeing as well, or what are your thoughts on this trend overall?
So there's many more influencers in marketing compared to 10 or 20 years ago. So I think every industry has moved more into influencer marketing, including B2B. So that's a fact. So B2B companies are spending a good amount of time on influencers. Now, question is it worth for them? If a B2B company is putting a lot of effort into influencers and growing fast, then which comes first? Is it that they are growing fast and they can afford to spend a lot with influencers? Or is it that they're growing fast because of influencers? I don't know. I think for some companies, probably influencers are working brilliantly, but there's some companies who shouldn't be doing that, right? I think it's a waste of time. There's an amount of ego involved. Some B2B company leadership people have good size egos, which I think is good to scratch with influencer marketing and social media marketing in general.
As in any field.
As in any field. So some companies definitely are well off working with influencers, but it's probably not suitable or not ROI positive for all the companies.
Yeah, for me, I more so see like either now like influencers who are like YouTubers mostly launching their own like SaaS companies, or someone is doing like educational content and then they're doing affiliate, or the CEO is just producing content themselves.
From our own friend circle, owners of marketing companies and SaaS companies are launching their own YouTube channels to bring in more leads. So it works like both ways. But about this attention economy, because we spoke about this with Kaur the other week, is there's this very young guy on Twitter and he's posting about creating short format videos and doing TikToks. And he's like 20 something and he already built up from his attention, from his followers on Twitter, 7-figure marketing agency, supposedly ARR, which is like pretty crazy for a 20-year-old to build that up just from his audience. And his following isn't even that big. So I'm like amazed that he's managed to do this. And that definitely goes to show the power of it, like influencer marketing, if the CEO himself is doing the influencing.
Yeah, but I think it's a good lesson also for some CEOs. So I saw an Instagram promoted account kind of ad for a startup CEO who I know. It was a well-shot video, well-produced video of him on his free time. And then I was like wondering, why is he promoting his account? And I chatted to him just by chance. I chatted to him a few weeks later, and he told that he's one of his new marketing strategies for driving leads to his main business, because his business is linked from the bio. That seems to me like a very like if you can go straight from A to B, you can go from A to Z to D to W and then to B. Seems like a very,
it's
you're putting your
indirect,
you're putting your effort in here and you're expecting results here. So I'm sure that that results can come, but I'm also sure that there's many more ROI positive things. I'm guessing maybe there's a fact of ego involved, that this person also wants to be like more of an influencer. Maybe he's a bit bored of being a CEO of a B2B company. Who knows?
Could it also be a result of how our social media platforms are working? And this is like a twofold. How the meta of the platforms is evolving in what people are interested in. They're more connected to actual people than companies. So if your company has a face, if you have a success story, if you have something to share, people are drawn to it. Whereas the other point is that these platforms are pushing personal brands more as opposed to businesses, because they want more money from businesses. So I have a feeling that for companies, let's say what's the word? It's turned
like
down.
The reach is
exactly
reach is like essentially
non-existent.
less, like multiplied by a factor of 0.5 compared to a personal account or something.
I think you're spot on, but there is some friction in there. So on the one hand, there's social media platforms who want to drive engagement, and people's faces are a good way to drive engagement. So people go there to kill time and to waste time. And there's a person who wants a problem to their business need, looking for a new software, looking for a new podcasting microphone, whatever. These people are in a hurry. They want to get the problem solved, not to get to know the story of a company CEO. So during that process, I think there's a friction somewhere, and I don't know where exactly, but finding solutions to some problems is great on social media platforms. But for other platforms, I think there's channels like Google and search, which are just good old ways of solving X or Y.
Has it not been tempting for you at all to try and hop on this trend or any other trend, to do some like funny TikTok dances and start your own YouTube channel?
Of course. I'm a human being, right? I have a huge ego. I can barely fit on this screen. But luckily, I've seen too many startup CEOs who do it foolishly, who made it like, who just, it's not cool. I have a good amount of people ahead of me who have done slightly embarrassing channels, and that has kept me on the right side of things.
Kept you in check.
But so far, like, I don't know, maybe tomorrow I will this will be the straw that breaks this podcast. Maybe it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
We're gonna take all credit for it then.
And tomorrow I'm gonna launch my TikTok, YouTube channel.
But let's dive in more into like B2B marketing, because I like how you're thinking about B2B marketing and how you compartmentalize these things. And when we're addressing the evolution of it, so where was B2B marketing? What was the state of the marketing field when you were in Pipedrive, for example? And where is it now? How has it evolved? How has it changed? And where do you see that it's gonna go? So let's take it like from chronologically here.
I don't know exactly. I've only seen a very small slice of B2B marketing, but and what I say has mostly relevance to B2B marketing, which is mostly self-service. So that's B2B marketing, where marketing drives leads, but it's really on to the sales to find the leads and qualify leads and make deals out of the leads. So there's businesses that are very, very sales-driven. I've been involved mostly with companies where growth is mostly marketing-driven. So more kind of self-service. SMB, targeting SMB kind of businesses, not Fortune 500 companies. So that caveat done, many things have remained the same. I mean, people are still people. People still react to emotional triggers. People still want to get the problem solved. People still want to show social proof or get social proof. People always like to try things free for first before committing. Psychology is the same. We haven't changed as people. But marketing channels have changed slightly. So when we started mapping out the playbook for Pipedrive marketing, then content marketing was in a very good place where search volume was there, but not all companies had figured out content marketing yet. Not all businesses didn't even have a blog or their own content marketing / media production side of things. And that has changed a lot. So by now, almost any company now starts with a blog before they come out with a product. Every keyword is competitive now. And plus there's AI, right? It's 100 times easier to produce content now than it was back when we started marketing for Pipedrive. And then what this has meant exactly, I think we're still looking this thing unfold. So content marketing is still working, but we know that at least according to the data that I've had access to, speaking to other entrepreneurs and marketers in kind of SaaS and tech areas. Nobody has lost the rankings or gained a lot of rankings by producing a lot of AI content or AI generated content. Maybe it's possible to sell phones, or maybe it's possible to sell something or rank for like travel tips or something like that with massive AI generated content. But in B2B marketing, I haven't seen it happen, at least not on scale yet.
I've seen like one that was quite interesting recently on Twitter. Like there's this testimonial or like a review collection platform, and they kind of did the Zapier SEO strategy of like programmatically generating a ton of pages. So basically like integration with X platform, like integration with Shopify, creating that page like basically with AI and some parameters, and these pages are like ranking, but it's like a pretty new company, but I think they're like, yeah, quite small, like 160K a year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But like it definitely works if you, or like it's not getting penalized, and it's working if you're like really new.
Yeah, and it's not getting penalized yet. So there's machines producing content, machines trying to detect content that's been artificially produced. So I think we haven't seen it unfold yet. We don't know what this will do in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Like, because Google has pretty good machine learning people employed there.
My thinking about this is that for every success story, like Carl just mentioned, there's 10 or more, or maybe 100 companies that have failed with this content. I remember reading either Danny Postma's or Levels IO's Twitter post where they hired a person to produce a bunch of articles for their AI startup, which were supposed to be high quality, and none of them ranked, and all of them started kind of like de-ranking their webpage and lowering the page rank. So he deleted all the articles. He ended up deleting all of them. But there is, and I'm now kind of, this has stuck with me, I'm now kind of quoting Kaur here, is that for non-obvious results, you want to go non-obvious ways. And that, I guess, applies to AI generation articles as well. So there was an article that said that essentially Google doesn't care if it's AI written as long as the content is actually good. So I guess they do have their own qualifiers. They know if you've used AI to write it, but when the article is good, then they're not going to penalize it. And this is because I guess that every writer already uses AI at least to maybe perhaps spell check or change the language, but that doesn't mean the content of the article is completely AI written, but it's going to show up in the qualifiers as AI written. So I think if you go like non-obvious ways, for example, I could, after this podcast, transcribe this full podcast, feed all this data into the AI and have the AI write articles based on the opinions that we ourselves share in this podcast. And that is going to be original content, because the idea, the essence of the content isn't actually coming from AI. It's not AI generated. It's human generated that AI then takes and then repackages, for example. So this could be like a non-obvious method that I've been meaning to try out, but I'm happy sharing it.
Yeah, and I think I like the approach of getting results from non-obvious places, because we know that most marketers in the bottom 50% are looking at AI and say, hey, I can just produce tons of content. Let's start producing tons of content. While this may generate some returns today, this will guaranteed not work tomorrow. Like this, just producing more content means that we're not going to artificially generate more searchers. So, and I think Google will probably penalize just like a blob of content which is just thrown onto the internet. That would probably not be a good signal.
Have you seen the way Google actually is testing the search functions now? Like they launched this Google Labs thing, which is you make a normal search just as Google would otherwise. But then instead of like the search results, the top part is like a AI generated response linking the sources. And then in the same box, you can ask follow-ups to this information. So you're like losing clicks completely, but it's just scraping the content essentially.
That's a good day for SEO people when this goes live.
I mean, it's already live.
Mm-hmm.
In the US,
but it's like an experimental feature overall.
So you can enable it, but it's already live. And I think you can even use it in Estonia, so it's not even only US based anymore.
Mm-hmm. But probably like a very small fraction of searches currently uses that.
I would guess so, yeah. But I would hope so.
Yeah, but I think aside from content production, where I'm also bullish is like putting machine learning into keyword research and content research. Production, I think, is the easy thing. That's easy to do with the tools available today. The non-obvious way to make machine learning or AI work for you is automating research and analysis.
What's like a practical example of that?
So currently, there's keyword research tool you can use that tell you what works for your competitors. But it's like you have to input what search right to track what you're looking for.
Like Ahrefs, Uber Suggest, all these platforms, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know that Shark tool, but automating research in a way that making it easier for marketer to say that, hey, you're getting 1,000 suggestions per day of what new pages your competitors have created or what's driving traffic to them really, and you can just say, yes, I want that too as well, and then you can just make a better version for your site. So having a machine like AI-based co-pilots, I think that's a good area.
You have any favorite tools that you're using?
I haven't seen a tool that does that exactly, but I'm keeping my eyes out for one.
So let's do a kind of like a 90-degree turn here, but it's related to something that you mentioned earlier. When you were talking about the evolution of marketing, you mentioned that there's an option that you should think about if you want to offer the product for free first. And I want to now understand how you think about product pricing, like SaaS product pricing. What's your experience with pricing? And if you think it's a good idea to offer software as a service for free for first, or should you always charge somebody, like even if it's $1 for a 7-day trial? Or like what's your thinking around this? How does this work, and how to price your product essentially?
So two things. I think first, it always depends. So what something which I've tested, that I used to be in product marketing at Skype. So what worked there was you need to charge some money up front. We didn't even charge money up front, but we had a credit card based trial, and that worked a lot better compared to trial without credit card numbers up front. So the ROI there was much higher. But having done the same test in a B2B SaaS company, the results were opposite. So you want to have a trial which doesn't have a credit card option. So you should always test. And I think second general thing is that most companies, we are pricing our services too low, so we should always increase prices.
Let's dig deeper into the idea of pricing your product too low. So how should you price the product? Is there a secret formula to this, or how do you approach pricing your products?
So I can give you Outfunnel as example. When we started, we had 3 pricing tiers, because that's like a good amount of pricing tiers to start with in terms of kind of consumer psychology. So you have the cheap and expensive option, and the people tend to buy the middle one. At that time, by the way, we didn't have differentiated products. We had the same exact product between all the pricing tiers, because we hadn't yet built the logic to count events. We had users using this exact same identical product, but just paying different amounts of that. But we caught up, and then of course added the events counter later on. But I think our pricing started at $15 per month when we launched, because we were not very confident in the product back then. And then as a result, we got a good amount of signups, good amount of new paying customers, but the customers on the lower plan tended to churn quite fast, or because they were paying too little, they didn't fully get onboarded, they didn't invest their time into making the product work for them, and they were very quick to churn. And then we raised our product prices slightly, and things got slightly better. And then last year we changed our prices by quite a bit. So our starting price was $59, and the decent package was $119. And that resulted in us getting fewer customers, of course, but the customers who then onboarded and started paying for us, they got really involved with the product. So if you're paying more than $100 for the service, like same service that maybe we were offering for $15 earlier on, you're making sure that you're getting all your accounts set up properly. Maybe you schedule an onboarding call with us, and then you are getting more value out of the product, and then you are probably likely to stay. We don't have full data yet, but the churn for the newer customer cohorts is significantly lower compared to the earlier ones. And of course, the lifetime value is much higher, because they're paying us quite a few more dollars per month.
There's this concept like that the more you pay for it, and you're not getting value out of it, the more you feel like you're not using it right. So like we had experience using a SaaS product for 30,000 a year, and we always felt like we're not using it to its potential. But then after 2 years, we finally churned because like it wasn't actually that good after talking with the people there. And I was like, okay, got played. But it definitely made you feel for a long time that you're the one wrong.
Yeah, but I think pricing does have an effect on how you perceive products. So even I was just read Fooled by Randomness by Dan Reilly, and then there's a chapter in there that they tested headache pills and then perceived, or like painkillers basically, and they were offering the same placebo painkiller in the tests, a capsule of vitamin C, but if they told that this vitamin costs $2, the people who were told that reported much faster and stronger pain relief compared to people that were told that this painkiller costs 20 cents. So I think same applies for SaaS tools as well.
What are like some of the marketing strategies that worked super well in Pipedrive but didn't work for Outfunnel anymore? And what are some interesting channels that are working for Outfunnel?
Good question, because Pipedrive and Outfunnel have a similar target audience. So it's B2B companies, not enterprise, but more SMB kind of types, maybe 10 to 200 employees. And some of the channels are very similar. So search worked for Pipedrive. It keeps working well for Outfunnel, both organic search and paid search. Content is good for driving awareness. Thought leadership worked at Pipedrive, works at Outfunnel. Then some of the paid channels, which I mentioned, like Capterra, G2, GetUp, these worked really well at Pipedrive, but because by now there's so many more SaaS tools out there, the ROI for these channels, I think, is a lot smaller these days. At least that's according to the data I'm getting from Outfunnel and a few friendly companies I'm seeing. Then something which was kind of started in the Pipedrive days, which was like we started writing the Pipedrive playbook around 2011, 12, 13. But it's really strong now is social media marketing. And we talked about influencer marketing slightly before. We haven't invested a lot into social media, but that's something which we are kind of keeping an eye on. And then I think in combination with content marketing, it can be really powerful. Also in combination with the community marketing, this can be really powerful. But we currently don't have a team big enough to manage that properly. So we're doing some experiments, trying to do things which we find useful or good or fun. But there's much more than we could do around that.
What exactly are you doing in social media, and which channels are you focusing on? Like, what's working?
LinkedIn, I think, is a good B2B, like probably for B2B, LinkedIn tends to perform the best. And the only thing which is working almost all the time is just being personal on LinkedIn, which kind of makes sense because it's social media and then you need to be social and personal. Sharing lessons learned, I think, is in short the one thing which always works. We'd like to do more video. We'd like to do more graphical content, but currently don't have the resources to go all in there.
That was my follow-up, is when you say content, do you currently focus on text only then? Or I guess you mentioned now that you want to explore video, right?
Yeah, I mean, text mostly. So we have done some video content. We have done some graphical things, animations. There's a lot more to do there. But one of the lessons, I think, is on social media and overall is that there's many playbooks for any company, and you just need to find what works for you. And what works for you can mean two things: what gets you results, and what is easy for you to produce. What's native for you? Kauri mentioned somebody before who, like a 20-something guy on Twitter who was running a 7-digit business on Twitter. Probably Twitter comes easy and natural for him, and it's that's his channel. That doesn't mean that people of my age should be going all in on Twitter because, well, I mean, I happen to be a big Twitter user, but should I say ex-user now? I mean, I'm an ex-Twitter user. It sounds fun, but I mean, it doesn't mean that everybody should flock to Twitter.
It's definitely more like a Gen Z 20s type of thing. Like they even call it money Twitter. Like it's just 19, 20-year-olds or even younger that are like doing online businesses
or if you built up the channel like years ago, because right now I tried Twitter and it's just not working for me. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Too old.
Yeah, and I think Twitter, I think for me is like I used to be really active there, maybe I don't know 10 to 3-4 years ago, but now I'm spending more and more time on LinkedIn and I'm tweeting less. So I used to Twitter was I had an engaged following in Twitter, but now when I go on Twitter, yes, I have some of my own friends just liking my post, but it has stopped being like a go-to channel for me.
Do you feel that there is meaningful engagement on LinkedIn, or is everyone just screaming from their own little corner, sharing their own things?
I mean, if you look at some of the discussion threads on LinkedIn, they are very insightful. So I wrote this thing about my coaching session a couple of weeks ago, and then the comments had more meaningful content. I thought it was a pretty good short piece, but the comments were got to be more interesting than my original post, I think. So some of it I think is pretty good. But I think you need to work on building your network there, and there's people who are better than me in doing that, but putting some time in there and thinking about value for the reader, value for the audience is always a good idea.
You can post learnings from the comments.
So that's your new content machine.
You got a new post.
I'm gonna now use AI to write new content based on the comments.
Exactly.
So
that's a thing on Twitter now, like AI replies.
Yeah, but I think this is just to wrap up what channel should be using. So of course, look at what presents results for you and your competitors. But the other is, what's easy for you. So I think this good old saying, "You do you," is a good way to good approach for picking channels.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing which I didn't mention, which works for Outfunnel, again talking of testing new platforms. So we integrate well with other SaaS tools, with sales tools, marketing tools. And many of them have their marketplaces. So HubSpot has their apps marketplace, Pipedrive has their apps marketplace, Calendly has their integration site, MailChimp has their integration tools, like integration section. It's very beneficial to be present in these places at the right time. So we started on Pipedrive Marketplace when Pipedrive had just launched it, and still getting value from there. We launched on HubSpot Marketplace when the marketplace had been live for 3-4 years already, maybe longer. And then it's hard to, like similarly, Andri, when you mentioned that it's hard to build your network if you're slightly too late to Twitter. So it's hard to get a lot of value out of a platform or marketplace when it has been going actively for too long. If you don't have anything super special about your product, that would help to shortcut it. So I think that's why it's like one more good reason to look at when a platform has been launched. Like Salesforce App Exchange, that was launched, I don't know, hundreds of years ago. This means that it's very, very hard to get the value from being present there as a new entrant.
Makes sense.
So for new emerging businesses, new emerging tools, you want to look at new emerging platforms where you can be potentially the first one in.
Yeah, so like if you integrate with 12 tools, like I think currently Outfunnel integrates with 15 or so tools. Some of them have an established marketplace like HubSpot or Salesforce. Some of them have a very basic integration page, but there's a number of companies who want to maybe this year or during the next 3 months go from having a simple page to a proper marketplace. And while they may have a smaller audience compared to a big platform, it's beneficial to be there present right now because that's where they are directing their users to the marketplace and they're trying to make sure that people present or companies present on this platform are getting wins from there. Timing is everything, as the saying goes. So I think we're going back to cliches now. Marketing advice is you do you, and timing is everything.
Perfect.
We can stop the podcast now. Stop recording.
Yeah, it's done. We're done. It's been said. Alpha has been shared. But going back to the idea of risk for a second, because we talked about risk earlier, when have you taken let's say what you would consider a high risk bet and it has really paid off for you in Outfunnel, let's say?
So I'm a wussy, right? And I haven't taken any. I don't have any good war stories. What I have done is always set aside. Always, like from the days when I was still working in fast-moving consumer goods, always set aside a budget for experimenting and for making like bold, strange, new things. Always has been a small share of the budget, never the majority of the budget. So you can say that I'm a wussy, but you can say that being a wussy is good when you're having to kind of run big marketing teams and marketing budgets, because you don't want to take huge risks if you're in charge of a whole team, a whole company, and its growth. So I recommend you, but I'd recommend being a wussy and only setting aside a small set of your budget for experiments and then going crazy with these ones.
But have there been any risks that were non-obvious at the time that have paid off, and now maybe in hindsight it's obvious that, oh yeah, sure, that's going to work, right?
One thing where we took a risk recently with Outfunnel, there's one story, not a great story, but a story I want to tell you nevertheless. We're building a tool that connects data. And always when we spoke about it to investors or new team members, we said it's slightly boring, but it's very useful if you're in marketing or sales. You want to have your data connected. And at the same time, we were also discussing what should Outfunnel's messaging be. And then we wanted to take a risk. We thought that, hey, maybe let's take this aspect of the product that it's slightly boring and turn that as the main part of the messaging. And we even tested it first. So we called ourselves, if we went to the homepage, we said the most boring marketing tool on the planet. And we had somebody yawning on the screenshot or like as a hero image there. And we tested it and we found that some people loved it and some people hated it. And we thought that's a good thing because you don't want the people just being neutral about your idea. So for 6 months, we were using this slogan that we were the most boring marketing tool on the planet. What we learned was that people who loved it, like some people who also kind of reached out via LinkedIn or Twitter and said, hey, this is brilliant. But these were just like friends or just people who are marketers, but not in our target audience, or brand marketers. But people who didn't like it were our new customers who were trying to figure out, is that the right product for me? So yes, some people were loving it, some people were hating it, but it was the wrong kind of people loving it and the wrong kind of people hating it. So in the end, then we went back to the normal.
And that's the exact phenomena that you see with marketing awards. Like award-winning marketers and giving out marketing awards has the same effect. It's like you're not necessarily making the most money. You're not necessarily the best marketers. It's just an award that you're getting given up by some jury. That doesn't mean that was like massively successful or anything.
Exactly. So I think it's good always. I mean, I think I'm still glad we made this because we wanted to take a risk. We didn't want to be like average. We took a risk. We found that it was not. It didn't kill us. It didn't kind of hold us back too much, but it was probably holding back some growth. So we went back to the more traditional messaging. But I'm very glad we did it nevertheless. I would always like to regret things I've done rather than things I haven't done.
I completely agree with that.
Would you say A/B testing has kind of lost some of its popularity compared to 7-8 years ago? I remember like A/B testing front ends was like really big, but now I'm like not seeing any A/B testing content anymore.
Or maybe it's just being like, maybe it's now so ubiquitous that it's so people don't talk about it anymore, because it was really like a thing to talk about. You had many different approaches and messaging always. Now I think people maybe test the messaging on ads and they just put one or two things out on layout, and when 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you stumbled upon a good case study in A/B testing, maybe you shared it, you talked about it. Now it's just here, whatever. No news there.
Do you have any interesting stories, like a massive winner from an A/B test, either from Pipedrive or Outfunnel?
Not really, no. I think there was one big A/B test which improved conversions by 30% sign-up wise. But then when we rolled it out, it had no effect on new paying customers. So it was probably a measuring error. So I think all the big losses and wins either tend to be measuring errors or some other flukes. That maybe you get more, maybe you can optimize sign-ups, but you get people with lower lifetime value, etc. So I'm yet to come across an A/B testing case study which meaningfully, significantly changed the trajectory of a company. Small wishes, yes.
Are you still running landing page tests of any messaging or anything?
Outfunnel, I think our traffic is too small, so yes, we have done many tests, but then you just need to wait for like 3-4 months to get the results in front of the landing pages. Yeah, we still do them, but it would work faster and better if we were maybe 3 to 5 times bigger traffic-wise.
And how tempted have you been on hopping on the AI hype train, just like finding a use case and plugging it into Outfunnel as well? Have you thought about it? Do you have anything planned? Or what's your thinking around this?
We experimented with a feature last year, which we didn't then end up releasing because it was harder to do than we thought. The use cases were more limited than we expected. All your competitors using AI in some shape or form. If you don't use it at all, you're just a horse salesman on the car parking lot.
And you mentioned your own AI use case that you're looking for marketing. Is that something you're exploring and you want to build yourself, or is it something you're waiting for somebody else to build?
I'd love for somebody else to build it because it's good to scratch your own itches, but I don't have enough time to scratch all my itches.
That's a fair answer. So I think we've covered like a lot of ground here, and we've opened up your view into marketing and your thought processes behind this. Would you say that you're a fairly traditional marketer, or how would you think about yourself in as a marketing lead role? It's like for me, it seems like you have everything compartmentalized. You have risks minimized, and you're as you said, you're not experimenting too much with these like new channels, and you're waiting for things to like.
I'm an individualist by personality type, so I wouldn't definitely call myself a traditional marketer. I want to always be like the misfit, and I always want to stand out slightly. But then would my bosses, would the CEOs and maybe board members who have worked with me same traditional, some of them probably would, because we have gotten most of the results from channels which have been tried and tested. But always I've also done experiments. In that sense, I haven't been traditional, but on the third hand, all marketers should do experiments. So in that sense, I am a traditional marketer, and it has worked for me. And I think being traditional works for many marketers. But I still like to think I'm special and do things my way. I do me, right?
Especially traditional. But I think, like marketing overall is like, if it's working, it's better to just focus on the one channel that is working and not basically try to maximize the return of that one channel that is working, instead of then like distributing to multiple channels and maybe putting less effort into the one that is working. And then when that one dies, then you feel like, I didn't maximize the return on it because I was focusing on all the other things.
Don't fix it if it ain't broken.
Third lesson from this podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Very
the cliche edition.
Yes.
Lots of wisdom.
Lots of shared wisdom.
Cliche form.
Exactly. We do short sound bites on this podcast. So if you have any short sound bites, any motivational quotes to say, just like, let's backload them here and all good. Or we're gonna add them to the show notes. Listen, Andrus, it's been great having you on. If somebody wants to reach out to you, follow you on social media, send you text messages, where can they find you and how can they reach you? And do you accept strangers?
Some strangers I accept, of course. I mean, I like to converse with people on Twitter and LinkedIn mostly. So these are the best places to start. And I've also been quite active in sharing our lessons on the Outfunnel blog. So if you don't want to talk to me, but just follow what we found, then I check out Outfunnel blog.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you for your time, and to everyone else, till next time.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you for having me. Bye.